Also another one that I've written kind of recently. So the story that I wrote for the book, it starts with a quote from Nick Drake, and it goes like this: "Gonna see the river man, gonna tell him all I can about the ban on feeling free." Rivers can be metaphors for many things. Metaphors for life, for its twists and turns, for the sureness of its path, for our uncertainty of what lies ahead. For times of peace in deep, calm waters, for times of struggle in the turbulence of the rapids, for times of submergence when hard bedrock yields to soft sand, creating hidden whirlpools and turnholes that threaten to suck us under their untroubled surface. Metaphors for the flow of time that's constant in its pace, but relative in our experience of it, going fast when we're paddling frantic upstream, and slow when we're floating down on our backs, gazing up at the clouds and letting the current do with us what it will. And metaphors for memories, that ethereal lifeblood that courses through our lives just like a river, connecting the babbling brook to the broad estuary, giving us a place, a direction, a stage, a reflection. Rivers flow in all of us and us in them, and in the sublimeness of their presence we find ours. In his own way, my father taught me this. His greatest passion was fishing, and I remember my first proper outing with him like it was yesterday. I was 5 and visiting my granny island for a fortnight on holiday, an annual pilgrimage to the paternal homestead. Holidays to me smelled like burning turf and tasted like red lemonade, gouty cheese and soft whip 99 ice creams. My daddy was my hero, and he was taking me fishing for the first time, and I knew it. Green wellies with frogs on the toes, dungarees and a lick of white blonde hair, bounding eagerly over rickety fences and through meadows, leaping into man-sized footprints in grass, desperate to share to the banks of the chattering Nore. I remember watching him rapt and bewildered at his rituals, threading the cast through the eyes of my little rod, black with red threading and a cork handle, and knotting the end deftly around the eye of a huge hook and moulding a blob of orange Play-Doh, salmon spawn, highly illegal stuff even in 1988, around its barbaric-looking barb. He sat me down on the bank and looked me straight in the eye and said, He sat me down on the bank at the top of the rapids and cast my hook under a large overhanging sally tree and into a sandy hole he knew well. He handed me the rod, rifled through the flaggers, which is long riverside grass, for a gal yog, a Y-shaped stick, to act as my rod rest. He found one, dug its tail into the earth, rested the neck of my rod in the V, and hunkered down to look me square in the eye. "Now, Han, this is very important. When the tip of the rod goes like this," cue his arm in electric shock like this, "you call me, okay?" "Okay." Thoroughly determined, I remember focusing on the top of the rod and willing it to move, and I was sure that it would if I just tried hard enough. And it did. Having made it no more than 30 yards upstream, he heard my urgent squealing, "Daddy! Daddy! The rod's shaking." He strode over in no great hurry, and I remember feeling frustrated that he wasn't sprinting. "Are you sure? Maybe it's just settling down in the current," he offered in his wisdom. But no. Out from the water emerged a slippery silver prize, more precious than gold, struggling to escape the confines of my net. He caught it in his big fist, stuck his fore and middle fingers down its neck and snapped its head backwards, and in my triumphant hands he placed 1/2 pound of glory. I shone and they beamed with pride. He took a clutch of grass, put it in our old battered fishing bag, and gently lay the trout to rest on top before casting out another blob of Play-Doh, this time with 2 little hands helping. Again I sat and waited, and again in a matter of minutes the tip of my rod went into a violent spasm. Again came the squeals, the splash, the crack, the glow of father-daughter pride. 5 times in total, if I must boast. Beheaded, gutted, peppered, floured and fried. That first time remains etched in my mind's ore, not just as the first time I went fishing, but also as the only time I was ever to catch more fish than my father. He only got 3. So that's an extract that I learned to fish on. It's called the River Nore, and it's located in the southeast of Ireland. The river rises in the Schliebloom Mountains in County Leitch, and it flows down to Waterford Harbour, where it joins up with its 2 sister rivers, which are called the Barrow and the Shore. And about 15 years ago, my family moved from Essex to live in Ireland, and my dad bought the field that I'd learnt to fish in, and he started a fishing school. This is the area that he was from. He started a fishing school about 10 years ago, and he was running it for a really long time, but unfortunately bad health got the better of him, and he hasn't been able to do it for the last few years. So this year I took over the fishing school as a charitable operation, with all the profits going to the Alzheimer's Society. So I've been keeping Jeff up to date with how things have been going. It's been a long time since I've done much fishing, and I certainly haven't taught very much, but it's been going quite well. We've had quite a few people come down and had a good time. So this is just a short story about how things have been going at the Inchbeg Fishing School. So, oh, how fast nettles grow. I've only been away from the river field for 3 weeks, and the banks already look like nobody ever loved them, with stingers towering 5, even 6 feet high, choking the bank for half a mile. In wellies and 2 thin jeans, I've negotiated a way through this vicious green mangrove to the edge of the low field, imagining slithy toves underfoot, borogoves at every turn, beastliness and never-ending rabbit holes lurking in the dips, with me the fantastical adventurer on the hunt for secret pools of fishy treasure. I'm not sure my colourful narrative will wash with the fishermen though, especially those that are used to the naked banks and convenient jetties of well-stocked lakes, who turn up to the relative wilderness of the Inchbeg Fishing School in shorts and trainers and put on brave faces whilst wringing every last drop from the docks. Yes, it's time to take a menagerie of rotating blades to this jungle, strimmers, hedge cutters, 2 types of mower, and cut the venom out. For the sake of business, if nothing else. Business, now you mention it, is ticking over quite nicely. We've had 4 groups of fishermen so far, with the 5th booked in, and the 6th, 7th, and maybe even 8th poking their noses up over the horizon, meaning that we've broken even and are now in 3 digits of profit for the Alzheimer's Society, which we're chuffed with. I've been thinking about it quite a lot lately, and it's occurred to me that learning to fly fish has a lot in common with learning to play the guitar. Just as no aspiring guitar virtuoso imagines themselves on stage strumming a 3-chord folk song at a forgiving mid-tempo, likewise nobody learning to fly fish dreams of catching a 4-inch sprat, or a sheep, or a tree, or worse, casting forward and watching the top of the rod fly off and float away down the river. And yet all of these things do happen, and with considerably more frequency than triumphant encounters with 10-pound salmon or 2-pound trout. Experienced coarse fishermen, used to stringing up a hook, lobbing it in the water, having a snooze while waiting for the alarm to go off, frustrate themselves with the intricacies, delicate arts and frequent losses of fly fishing in much the same way as that guitar hero champions visibly wither when a real live 6-string crosses their path. Sorry, the damp is getting to this paper. The fiddly little flies with knots and eyes and fine, fine lines that break and snap like spiders' webs. The pitch and rhythm, the aim and timing in one single cast. The gentle flourish at the end of a sustained note when the line unfurls gracefully onto the water and the fly plinks itself down right on top of the rise with just the right amount of reverb. Fish like their dinner presented in a calm, natural, appetizing manner, and to do that requires patience, focus, technique and instinct, all things necessary for great art. For many people, stumbling across the art in something you'd always assumed was a skill bookends the experience with tension, which is of course completely at odds with the aim. We fish to unwind, it's true, but in order to fly fish, we must be unwound already. After all, lines don't lie. Fish feel the frustration when they whip the water. They know when a cast is aggressively flung. They see the tree shake as you rip your embedded fly from a branch. They smell the testosterone in the sweat oozing from your pores, and they don't have much of a taste for it, which is why I'm told women make better fly fisher people. But when you relax and ease into the score of the cast, when you let your self-consciousness float away downstream, when you fall into rhythm with all that's around you, when the line makes that gorgeous switch sound and the big trout gulp in harmony with each other, and the subtleties of the Riverside Symphony emerge from pizzicato into a rich, devastating fortissimo, then you begin to learn how to fly fish. And there's no lesson can teach you that. Thank you.
So this is it. It's called Riverman. Gonna see the Riverman. Gonna tell him all I can about the ban on feeling free. Rivers can be metaphors for many things. Metaphors for life, for its twists and turns, for the shortness of its path, for our uncertainty of what lies ahead, for times of peace in deep, calm waters, for times of struggle in the turbulence of the rapids, for times of submergence when hard bedrock yields to soft sand, creating hidden whirlpools and turnholes that threaten to suck us under their untroubled surface. Metaphors for the flow of time that's constant in its pace but relative in our experience of it, going fast when we're paddling frantic upstream and slow when we're floating down on our backs, gazing up at the clouds and letting the current do with us what it will. But also metaphors for memories, that ethereal lifeblood that courses through our lives just like a river, connecting the babbling brook to the broad estuary, giving us a place, a direction, a stage, and a reflection. Rivers flow in all of us, and us in them, and in the sublimeness of their presence, we find ours. In his own way, my father taught me this. Not in words, they were not his strong point. As a peasant child in 1930s rural Ireland, he emerged illiterate and ignorant from 2 years of schooling. The greatest impact of that experience was felt on the temples of his head, the lobes of his ears and the palms of his hands. He recalls being beaten by the teacher for being thick, so he wouldn't go to school and instead opted to be beaten at home by his father for truancy. School registers from the time recalled one of two excuses: wet day, no clothes, or, more frequently, gone fishing. What I learned from him came in more subtle ways than that of lecture, both in retrospect and in riddle. It required a certain amount of water to pass between the arches of my bridge to be understood. But now I understand. Because that scrawny, malnourished child with no shoes and no electricity, that picked stones out of praty fields for pennies and knew the fear of God like the back of his hand, instilled in his child, a child of 1980s relative affluence with a full belly and nothing to want for, a sense of what it is to know oneself through nature, to find your place in this world, and in that place be free. His lesson was his life, and his classroom his river. Aside from the mechanics of classic cars, to which he devoted 40 years of his professional life, my father's greatest passion was fishing, and I remember my first proper outing with him like it was yesterday. I was 5 and visiting my granny island for a fortnight on holiday, an annual pilgrimage to the paternal homestead. Holidays to me smelled like burning turf and tasted like red lemonade, gouty cheese and soft with 99 ice creams. My daddy was my hero and he was taking me fishing for the first time and I knew it. Green wellies with frogs on the toes, dungarees and a lick of white blonde hair, bounding eagerly over rickety fences and through meadows, leaping into man-sized footprints in grass, desperate to share to the banks of the Chatham Moor. I remember watching him rapt and bewildered at his rituals, threading the cast through the eyes of my little rod, black with red threading and a cork handle, and knotting the end deftly around the eye of a huge hook, and moulding a blob of, shh, Hannah, don't tell anyone, orange Play-Doh, salmon spawn, highly illegal stuff, even in 1988, around its barbaric-looking barb. He sat me down on the bank at the top of the rapids and cast my hook under a large overhanging sally tree into a sandy hole that he knew well. He handed me the rod and rifled through the flaggers for a galliot, which is a wide-shaped stick, to act as my rod rest. He found one, dug its tail into the air, rested the neck of my rod in the V and hunkered down to look me square in the eye. Now, Han, he said, this is very important. When the tip of the rod goes like this, cue his forearm an electric shock. You call me, okay? Okay, I said. Thoroughly determined, I remember focusing on the top of the rod and willing it to move. I was sure it would if I just tried hard enough. And then it did. Having made it no more than 30 yards upstream, he heard my urgent squealing, Daddy, Daddy! The rod's shaking. He strode over in no great hurry, and I remember feeling frustrated that he wasn't sprinting. Are you sure? He said. Maybe it's just settling down in the current, he offered in his wisdom. But no. Out from the water emerged a slippery silver prize, more precious than gold, struggling to escape the confines of my net. He caught it in his big fist, stuck his fore and middle fingers down its neck, snapped its head back, and in my triumphant hands he placed a ½ pound of glory. I shone, they beamed with pride. He took a clutch of grass, put it in our old battered fishing bag, and gently laid the trout to rest on top, before casting out another blob of Play-Doh, this time with 2 little hands helping. Again I sat and waited, and again, in a matter of minutes, the tip of my rod went into a violent spasm. Again came the squeal, the splash, the crack, and the glow of father-daughter pride. 5 times in total, if I must boast. Beheaded, gutted, floured, peppered, and fried. That first time remains etched in my mind's eye, not just as the first time I went fishing, but also as the only time I was ever to catch more fish than my father. He only got 3. But he played a clever game, knowing that if there was any chance of me becoming a fisherwoman, I had to catch a fish on my first go. Later, I found out that was the one and only time he'd ever used salmon spawn, or trout's heroin, as it would be known, to lure a fish, and that I was the intended prey. I've tried to repeat that success many times, albeit with less advantageous bait. Pails of warm, soapy water brought forth maggots from Granny's back garden, but all I ever seemed to catch with them were hideous eels that squirmed and twitched, even after their heads had been chopped off. My cormorant uncle always gave them a welcome reception, however. The family moved wholesale to Ireland when I was 11, taking over Granny Island's house, 2 fences and 1 meadow away from the site of my debut, and opposite a small stretch of northside pasture known to us as the Riverfield. It consisted of 4.3 acres of untilled land that was liable to flood, and ½ a kilometre of neglected, unfished river that my father had dreamed of owning since his boyhood days. A slice of heaven whose divinity was preserved in a stratum of memories. He and his 7 brothers and sisters had played, caught dinner, shat, and had their annual bath in that field, and Granny had washed the family's clothes on its banks. In 1996, he bought it from a local landlord whose family he'd known through 4 generations, and on whose farm he had toiled. It was the Enfield, the runt of their agrarian litter, but its acquisition was still a rarity. In Ireland, farmers don't sell land. His cause was aided in part by changing attitudes of younger generations of landowners, but also by my father's generosity in youth. He never forgot old Mr. Phelan when he caught a few trout. Diggers respectfully tidied the bank. Black sacks of household waste were wrenched barehanded from the bed, and 500 native trees were planted in a bid to restore something of the local wildlife's natural habitat. It was in this field that I learned to fly fish, under my father's strict instruction. This, he informed me, with an elegant crack of his 12-foot split-cane salmon rod, was an art form, and one to which all fishermen aspire. I was taught to tie flies in the dark. I learned to anticipate the rise and select the appropriate fly, sedges and green olives the favourites, black gnats after 10 p.m. I perfected my cast and put my own spin on the motion. Born of necessity, I did not have my father's biceps, that allowed me to present my fly to the fish with the finesse of a silver service waitress anywhere at all on the river. He said that was the mark of a good fly fisher, and I took his words seriously and practiced casting onto a deep rise a deep hole under a tree on the other bank, with the wind against me till my hands came off of wells. Summer nights by the North, the swish of a cast, the cold rush of water around my legs. We never did care much for waders. Diamond stars in a pitch black sky between us. Him steadfast and oblivious on one bank, casting away merrily, building up a fishing school, manicuring his banks. And me, stubborn, proud and neglected, growing up the English kid in the excruciating glare of the Irish Catholic convent school system on the other. We diverged. I hung up my rod and moved to the city to pursue a treacherous but ultimately successful career as a rock and roll journalist, a passion of mine he cared not to comprehend. And I came to resent the waters that he allowed to consume him deeper than his own blood. When at 17 I got a commission and later an internship from the country's biggest music magazine, it took him 2 years to remember the name of the title. When I moved back to the UK at 21 to join the rest of the sprats throwing themselves against the music industry's weir, he could never remember which city I lived in. When I tried to converse with him over the phone, he'd only ever offer the same specific phrases. I thought he wasn't interested in me, and I took his neglect deep into my heart. But it wasn't until he introduced my mother to me as my uncle that I realised that this cocoon he existed in was not by choice. 3 years ago, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and 9 months ago was taken into full-time care. For a man who's never tasted alcohol, never smoked a cigarette, never touched a narcotic, who spent every single day of his life outdoors, and who, until a year ago, could do a chin-up, flip his legs over his head and land on his feet. To be locked in an air-conditioned ward on a cocktail of drugs is beyond hell on earth. Our only consolation is that he doesn't remember. For my part, I went to India, rediscovered my heart and the importance of family, returning just as he was taken into care. I moved back to Ireland then, and I'm still there with my mother, doing what we can. Nature is slowly consuming the river field and the banks are growing over. Nevertheless, with youth and blind ambition on my side, it's my hope to reopen the Inch Bay Fly Fishing School, as it's known, next season, or this season, and to donate the proceeds to the Alzheimer's Society, which we are doing. The water has changed. My father has lost his river, and I now walk its banks alone, more than a little lost myself. But through my sorrow, it gently reminds me, in the ripples and gurgles of that old familiar voice, that we each have our own course to run. That as tributaries dart from that same river, seeking their own place amongst the earth, so must I. And there I find, safe in nature's glistening example, and comforted by my own precious memories, that I'm not consumed by a whirlpool of grief. Through these waters, my father has bequeathed to me a metaphor for peace in troubled times, and in them, I too have found what it is to be free.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next up, we've got John Berry, who's going to read something about the rules. Over the bush.
How are you, Daddy?
Very well, thank you, Han.
It's a nice day, isn't it?
It's a lovely day, darling. Yeah,
It is. Perfect summer day, isn't it?
it's a warm face.
Is it nice on your face?
You come
lay
here.
back in that then. Just
No.
lay back on it, Jack.
No, you take off of that and sit on this.
No, I'm fine here. I'm looking at you. No, just lean back there. It's lovely.
It's lovely. It is lovely.
You can close your eyes and feel the sun on your face.
Yeah. That's the old son. I remember Daddy telling me that it's the Daddy. What's the song? Did you remember that?
And what did he say?
They said that was oh, I forget what the reference are
Warm the world.
on not the world, no.
What is it then?
Yeah. But anyway, we did get it.
Did you?
Yeah, 44.
Right.
Yeah, had a 44s. I got another one yesterday and I'll probably get another one now in the morning.
Will you?
Yeah.
Is it nice, Dad?
It is. I've changed an awful lot.
Mm.
You see.
You know as much as your daddy now.
Huh?
You know as much as your daddy now.
I do.
You do. And more. Huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like to. But you see, Dad reads so much.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
You see, and he'd sooner go to stay where he is
yeah.
and then leave me there, like, and it's when I'm on my own, like.
Yeah.
But to be it's not. When I went to the first one, that's right.
Yeah.
The first one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one, the fifth one, the sixth one, the seventh one.
Mm.
Yeah.
Look at these clean hands. Aren't they clean?
Yeah.
Cleanest hands that you've ever had, Dad,
Yeah.
these are.
Yeah.
And they were clean.
They've been black for many years doing all the cars, weren't they?
Oh, the cars and
Yeah.
everything you
Yeah.
had.
The
Yeah.
engines and the gearboxes.
Gearboxes and taking getting under the gearboxes on the
Heavy work.
heavy work, yeah. But I'm delighted about it because Dad was at the stage that I couldn't contend with him, to be honest with you. That's only between you and I, but don't say nothing like that to him.
No.
Don't say a thing about it.
No.
And where the brush went up on your little, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Oh yeah, I know what it is, yeah.
You're feeling that.
It's nothing.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
What have you
But
got?
isn't this nice? Would you would you like me to make a cup of tea?
I know. We'll have one a bit later.
Oh yeah, it's
And
lovely.
enjoy the bit of sun while we have it.
We did, that was
Because
lovely.
it could be gone short.
No, that's what I call, this is what I call now, this looking at each clean, one of these skeins or what they call it, I know they're looking for tiles and that,
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
and getting it set up and sitting down.
A lot of work.
It was. But I love that.
Yeah. You always enjoyed the work, didn't you?
Yeah.
What's your favourite car?
My favourite car, I must tell you, the favourite car, I suppose would be one of the Alfa Romeo.
Is it? An Alfa?
Really, an Alfa?
Huh?
An Alfa?
Yeah.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's the same as the. I wanted to see the sign and to see if I could break up the.
Hmm?
I didn't want to break it up or anything.
Do you know what I thought you were going to say?
Huh?
I thought you were going to say your favourite car was an E-Type.
An E-Type is.
A Jaguar E-Type.
Yeah, I think I will really.
Would you?
I would for you. Would you do that?
Yeah.
That's
You want a new E-Type, do you?
I'd like to see you with it.
You'd like to see me with an E-Type?
Yeah, but it's on the map.
Oh yeah, but you'd have to repair it, Jack.
Oh,
You'd have to keep it in good fettle
I do.
if I had an E-Type.
Yeah, you would have to.
You'd do it, would you?
Yeah.
Right.
Sure, I done the whole lot.
Hmm.
I never missed it. So the fact that I crashed that time is what I was.
You had a crash?
Yeah.
What happened?
When the motor road came down and somebody came over and hit us.
Oh,
Remember that?
I don't. Oh.
Huh?
When was that?
That was about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Was it, Daddy?
Yeah, I had just.
What happened?
My
Hannah
handbag.
Hannah and I always went everywhere for the.
Yeah.
We did like that.
Yeah.
You see. Is that higher up there?
A little bit.
Yeah. So I got in there. This is lovely. But
Well, you used to take Hannah everywhere, didn't you?
I did. Yeah,
And I want to take you everywhere.
you do. Little dots. Kind of scratching herself. Her fingers are longer.
Just relaxing.
She's not. She's a good girl.
Daddy.
What? Oh no.
There's a bit of a cough there, haven't you? Oh.
Koi
Quite.
kuh.
I'll tell you why I let off.
Huh?
I'll tell you why I let it off.
Yeah.
Since I had that ring,
Since you had the ring.
What ring, Dad?
no, it's the ring that goes around the ring of the. I'll show you in a minute.
Oh, right.
It's lovely to stay like this, you
Yeah,
know.
to get the sun on you.
And now you can get good sun on you. You've
I
got
can
fantastic.
feel it on my head, it's lovely.
Yes, you have got lovely sun. I'll check this out here.
I'll do it, Dad.
And yeah, and then if you wish to,
You can just relax here for a minute.
that's a lovely timber. These are. Oh God. Yeah. That's good. Yeah, I got one of these as well.
Yeah,
Oh, I told you, didn't I?
that's good for you, to keep you warm.
It is, yeah. What do you think of them shoes, Kat?
Well, I'd say they need a bit of a polish myself. What do you think?
I would.
They look comfy though.
Yeah, as the chap said, he had one for 2 years.
2 years.
Huh?
Wow.
Are they comfy?
Yeah.
You haven't got big feet, have you?
Who, me? I haven't. So I'm happy with the ones I am.
Oh, you'll stick with them now at this stage, huh?
Huh?
You'll keep them now after all these years.
I am.
You'll hang
yeah.
on to them.
I'm getting.
How old are you, Daddy?
Huh?
How old are you?
One.
No, you're not.
Huh?
You're not one. How old are you?
How old am I? I was 62. 62.
62, eh?
Yeah.
And how old am I?
It's 50.
50? No.